course. And he says, who are you, Master? And Yahshua says, Shaul, Shaul, it is I, Yeshua of Nazareth, whom you persecute. When Rav Shaul was called, he was called by Yeshua in the first person. In Acts 13, in the same exact book, Rivka, same book, the Ruach HaKodesh said, in the last verse of chapter 13, separate me, Barnabas and Rav Shaul, for the calling that I have for them. That's when the Ruach HaKodesh speaks directly on a matter. Add to this, brothers and sisters, a troubling fact that the discipleship of returning Ephraim was left to unbelieving Jewish people and their leaders. One more question. Are we allowed to question man's ways and rulings? Why is it that Israelites can question leaders in the Tanakh and examine them for veracity, yet the mere questioning of Yaakov or Rav Shaul is cause for excommunication and false charges of blasphemy? And again, I repeat, I am affirming the word of Yahweh. I am not questioning the word of Yahweh. I am affirming the entire words of Yahweh. Can I hear a good amen?
Amen.
I am saying that the decision of the elders to turn the discipleship of the Great Commission over to the unbelieving Jews was a direct violation of the Great Commission. The Great Commission in Matthew 28:19 says, go tell them about the good news of my blood. And then when you finish doing that, make them your disciples, teaching them everything I have commanded you. No wonder they were rejoicing in Antioch in Syria. They were told that they thought that they didn't have to do the Torah. Mm-hmm. And that the Torah was not an important thing. And it was so unimportant that they had to go to unbelieving Jews if they wanted to leave Torah, because if it was important, James and Peter and Paul would have done it themselves. It sent the wrong message, Chris. Chris, it sent the wrong message. Because if it was important, the disciples would have done it themselves. So when all these Ephraimites heard it, they began to rejoice and be giddy that they were not under obligation to obey all Yeshua's commandments. And so here we are. Here we are, in retrospect. We have the clear admonition of Bamidbar 15. We have the clear admonition of Shemot 12. The admonition is clear. I'm going to read it again because I don't want the devil to obscure my words. When Yahweh talks, it is clear. Claro. Cada palabra es claramente. Bamidbar. We read it earlier. Go back there. Go back there. It won't bite you. Just because you're reading the same verse twice doesn't mean you're gonna get bitten. Bamidbar 15:15. One ordinance for you of the congregation of Israel. One for the ger, the stranger who has no Israelite DNA and hangs out with you. An ordinance leolam va'ed in all your generations, as you are, so shall the ger be. One Torah, verse 16, one ordinance for you and for the ger that sojourns with you. Thus says Yahweh. It's in italics, meaning Yahweh is clear. But when we are left with the ruling of the Jerusalem Council, we're left with a fog. Nothing is clear. Who's going to teach these people Torah? It's not clear. They may have to find a synagogue in their city. And what happens if the synagogue is not in their city? Do they then go to church? And that's where the church found disciples. These were non-Jews. They were taught that Torah was not an important thing because James, Peter, and Paul didn't think it was that important. They left it to the unbelieving Jews. So when the Catholics came along, they go, see? The Jerusalem Council said that the disciples don't have to teach Torah, so it can't be that important. Come. There's a Mithra temple here. We'll call it a church. We'll put on vestments of Ishtar and the Babylonian goddess of fertility, and we'll be good Christians on Sunday morning. But stop blaming the Catholics for it. Let's blame this council here that blatantly disobeyed the Great Commission. Not just disobeyed, blatantly disobeyed the Great Commission. You ever hear this before, Darrell?
Oh, no.
Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. I'm not a perfect man. Prove me wrong. Now again, I'm not saying that the 3 rules were not right. They were right. They were the first step for Ephraim to return. But if for instance, in our marriage, whose responsibility is it to be the priest of the home? Mine. If I come to you as a man and say, listen, I don't got time to be the priest. Okay, well, here's what I want you to do. I want you to be the priest of my home. Okay? You come into my home. You guide my wife. You help my wife. You instruct my wife. Because I know I'm supposed to do it, so I'm not telling you, I'm not saying I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to do it through you. I'm going to pass the responsibility for being the priest in my home to you.
It's true.
You look at me like I was a nut. Mm-hmm. Like I was a box of fruit flakes and nuts. Kellogg's brand cereal. That I was one big fat composition of fruit, nuts, and flakes. It's my responsibility to be the Kohen in my house, not yours. And it's your responsibility to be the Kohen in your house. You're not going to bring in, you're not going to bring in Vice President Cheney to be the Kohen in your house. Go ahead and get quiet. Let me see if I care. So the Jerusalem Council knew that they could not violate Torah, that there was one Torah for all believers. However, the problem of the ruling of the Jerusalem Council is that they failed to make clear that all believers were eventually expected to keep Torah, and that it was the obligation of Yeshua's disciples to teach Torah and not send Yeshua's disciples to the unbelieving synagogues. Now is it clear? Can I hear a good amen? Amen. So eventually when the Christian church came in, they seized this lack of clarity. They took advantage of this lack of clarity, and they twisted the words of Rav Shaul and of Yaakov and said, you see, they said that the Ephraimites don't have to obey the Torah. That is not what they said. They said the opposite. Ephraimites have to obey the Torah, but we're not going to teach it. The unbelieving Jews can teach it. And we have been suffering from that error ever since. So what is the answer to our question? Can we continue to blame the Catholics? No. Again, as we midrash this in our mind and our spirit, there is nowhere in Acts 15 where it says, Yahweh said, the Ruach HaKodesh said, Yeshua said. What we have left is the following. Verse 13, Yaakov said, listen to me. Verse 19, Yaakov said, my judgment is this. Verse 25, it seemed good to us. Hey, Chris, I was thinking, you know how they sell drugs in downtown Fort Lauderdale? It seems good to me that, now Yahweh made all the herbs of the field. So why don't we go cop a nickel bag and we just start talking, get smoke up? It seems good because if Yahweh wouldn't have made that herb, so it seems like there's nothing wrong with it. You see how that's crazy? Look at verse 25. It seems good. Here it is. Seems, feels good, feels right. We think it's right. It may be right. We think it's right. It makes sense. Makes perfect sense. Look at verse 28. It seemed right to the Ruach. Not thus saith Yahweh, or the Ruach HaKodesh says. No, it seems right. And then the Ruach HaKodesh is blamed for it. Okay? It's like somebody saying, I was praying, I was speaking in tongues, glory to the goat. And God hath told me to go home and beat my wife until she submits to me. Because that woman not submitting to nobody, that woman is out of control. And I've been praying in tongues for 5 long days. And God told me to beat you to a pulp till you admit that I'm the king of your home and get down on your knees and kiss my, lady, start kissing. Now, let me ask you a question. Is that Yahweh?